It's your boy Treka Z. Today we're doing this live video to talk about the recent situation that's happening between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Now, as you all know, I reported recently that Azerbaijan striked Armenia, killing more than 49 Armenians. And today I'll be doing a live video talking to Kevork Almasyan, who is the founder of Syriana Analysis. So I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds just to wait for Kevork to send a request to join this live video, and we're gonna start talking about the situation between Azerbaijan requests. So he'll be joining in a matter of seconds. Hello, Kevork.
Hi, Treka.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. To all the people watching, in case you don't know who Kevork Almasyan is, he's the founder of Syriana Analysis. It's a page you can find throughout social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's a page that talks about the truth, about the political situations happening in the Middle East, in Syria, and in international and other countries. Kevork Almasyan is a Syrian/Armenian. We both have things in common, that we both lived through the war in Syria, and we know how terrible and cruel war can be. And obviously, as you all can see, he's also a very, very hairy man, just like me. Thank you,
Hey,
Kevork,
Babu.
for joining. Thank you, Kevork, for joining this video. Now, let's just get into it. Can you please explain what exactly is happening between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
First of all, before I explain the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I would like to mention that this conflict is not between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan. There are few journalists that I have seen publishing reports about the conflict, and they're confusing between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. Nagorno-Karabakh is an independent region. It's located on the eastern side of Armenia. It's predominantly Armenian like inhabitants, and they have declared self-determination after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they become a republic by themselves called Artsakh. So the conflict that happened 2 years ago between Nagorno-Karabakh, or Artsakh as the Armenians like to call, is different from this conflict. This is between Armenia itself and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan 2 days ago launched an unprovoked offensive on Armenia because, as we may know, there are negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey to normalize the relations. As we may know, these countries are not in good terms, and because of the historical context, it's very important that the Ottoman Empire committed a genocide against the Armenians. 1.5 million Armenians were perished. So it is not an easy, I would say, to turn that page. In any case, because of these negotiations, Azerbaijan always raises new demands and raises the bar of the demands from Armenia. One of the demands is Azerbaijan wants a border crossing that is controlled by Azerbaijan in southern Armenia in order to change the balance of trade power, I would say, in favor of Azerbaijan. And this demand has been rejected by Armenia and also been rejected by Iran. And because of that, Iran is also sending now reinforcement to the north of its country because they don't want to see any change in the borders between these three countries, because it will serve Azerbaijan. And since Azerbaijan is a big ally of Israel, Iran doesn't want to see that. So Azerbaijan is attacking now Armenia in order to force the Armenian side to compromise and give what Azerbaijan wants in that region. This is number one. Number two, specifically the Biden administration and Britain, because of the Ukraine war, they don't want people think that the United States wants Ukraine to win this war. I don't think so. I think the United States and Britain, they want to prolong the war as much as they can in Ukraine and devastate the Russian economy there, to exhaust the economy of Russia in a long-term war. And because only 2 days ago or 3 days ago, the Russians received a setback or a blow by the Ukrainian armed forces in the south near Mykolaiv, the Russians aren't in the best position in Ukraine. Therefore, the Americans and the Brits, they want to drag Russia into another bloody conflict in the Caucasus or between Armenia and Azerbaijan, because there is a defense alliance between Armenia and Russia through what is called the CSTO, which is a defense organization. And Russia has the right and the duty to defend Armenia if Armenia is attacked by a foreign power. Therefore, if Armenia asks Russia to intervene, just like Syria asked Russia to intervene, then Russia has to intervene on the side of Armenia. And this is, I think, what the Americans want. They want to spread the forces of Russia in different regions of the world in order to drain the military and economic power of Russia.
I want to ask, when Azerbaijan attacked and struck Armenia a couple of days ago, the reports were saying that 49 Armenians died. But now, as I'm reading more and more about the news, they're saying that the numbers are more than 49 Armenians. How many people in Armenia strikes from Azerbaijan?
We don't have like an exact numbers at the moment, because both sides, they don't reveal the true number, and I think the number from the Armenian side definitely exceeds 150, between 150 and 200 casualties. It was a full-scale military attack where Azerbaijan used missiles, used drones, and artillery, and they have attacked spots inside the Armenian territories. And if you see the map of the conflict now, there is no point where Armenia bombed Azerbaijan inside Azerbaijan. All the bombings happened inside of Armenia. Therefore, in my opinion, the Azerbaijani claim that Armenia is provoking Azerbaijan is ridiculous, because Armenia is the weaker side of this conflict, and it has recently lost the battle in Nagorno-Karabakh against Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan is the more stronger side. They have a very strong military power. There is an aerial, I would say, bridge between Tel Aviv and Baku that transfers like unlimited amount of weapons, ammunition, high-tech hardwares, advisors, supervisors, trainers. And in exchange, Azerbaijan sells Israel oil and gas. Over 60% of Israel's needs of energy comes from Azerbaijan through Turkey. So militarily speaking, Azerbaijan has an upper hand. Economically speaking, Azerbaijan strike deals with the European Union to sell more gas, and at the end of this year, Azerbaijan will increase its gas supply by 30% to the European Union, despite the fact that the European Union knows well that Azerbaijan is a dictatorship. Aliyev is a dictator, and it's a very authoritarian regime there, where the basic human rights and freedom of expression and institutionalized democracy do not exist. And but the European side nowadays, or those who are in charge of the politics, right, they hate Russia so much that they want to buy gas from Azerbaijan and enable, regardless of the consequences, because when they empower a bloodthirsty, I would say, a regime like in Azerbaijan, and buy all this gas from it, they are enabling also the annihilation of the Armenians. And we all know that the history when 100 years ago, 1.5 million Armenians died by the Ottoman Empire, and nowadays the Azeris consider themselves also pan-Turkic people, and they are in close alliance with Turkey, and Turkey is also helping Azerbaijan. So in my opinion, when any nation refuses to acknowledge the historical responsibility for their grandfathers who committed an ethnic cleansing against the Armenians, 1.5 million people perished, then I think they will repeat similar crime even in the 21st century, because they have nothing to stop them. There is nobody can deter them from committing such genocide against the Armenians. And the proof of that was in Syria, when ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all these Islamist groups were committing acts of genocide against religious minorities and even against the majority, right? And nobody cared, and nobody wanted to stop them until 2015. ISIS was expanding from the desert of Syria, from Palmyra to Damascus, under the watch of the so-called US coalition against ISIS, but they used ISIS against Syria, right? So I don't see that there is any power who could stop the Azeris or the Turks from annihilating the Armenians, unless the Armenians ask the Russians to come for help now. And the Russians also, as I mentioned, they have their own priorities, and they are stuck in the Ukraine war. So I don't know if the Russians would accept to join any military adventure in the Caucasus.
Yeah, because that was what I wanted to ask you. Do you think if Armenia asks Russia to help out, do you think Russia would help out the Armenians, or is it because now Russia is so busy with their conflict with Ukraine that they might not help the Armenians?
First, the Russians have a very strong leverage in the region, and I think they have enough leverage to stop this conflict through diplomatic means. Unless Azerbaijan occupies territories inside of Armenia and insists of keeping that territories, and if Armenia officially invites Russia and asks for the CSTO to activate the Article 4 of the organization's charter, then the member states of the CSTO, they have to join just like they did in Kazakhstan last year, when there was a big turmoil and the United States tried to overthrow the government there through a color revolution. Then Kazakhstan asked for the CSTO. CSTO is a collective security treaty organization headed by Russia. And they stopped the crumbling of the Kazakhstani government there. So, but this was before the Ukraine war. So let's see, because Armenia officially asked for CSTO to activate Article 4 of the charter, but will CSTO join the fight with Armenia or not? That's another question, because all these countries also enjoy good relations with Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
So let's see.
And now that gas has a lot to do with it, I think that most NATO countries will be silent about what Azerbaijan is doing to Armenia. And plus, you were mentioning Turkey. Turkey is one of the countries that till today they didn't acknowledge the Armenian genocide. So it's like, it looks like the majority of the world now aren't standing with the Armenians, and the Armenian military is not as strong as the Azerbaijani military, because Azerbaijan is getting all this funding and support from multiple countries. And it looks like what also made me surprised is that I have a question. It's like, why is the mainstream media silent about what is happening to the innocent Armenian people, and they're not talking about it as much as they were talking about, let's say, the Ukrainian conflict? Why are the majority of the mainstream media not reporting as much as they were reporting about Ukraine?
Simply because the mainstream media is not independent. And there are editorial lines and guidelines come from intelligence agencies, guidelines come from politicians, guidelines come from the corporations that own these media outlets, right? These media outlets aren't financed, self-financed at the end of the day. And the truth of the matter is, because the European Union nowadays needs Azerbaijan and Azerbaijani gas. Therefore, you will see very shy condemnations without even naming Azerbaijan. Yesterday, one of the diplomats for the European Union in the Caucasus, he tweeted something, and he just called for both sides for self-restraint, and he says the shelling should stop. And it's like he doesn't even mention who is shelling who.
But the thing is that Armenia isn't the one striking. Armenia isn't the one killing innocent people. Armenia is actually just defending itself, and Azerbaijan is the one that is being the aggressor. So when somebody like that comes out and say, "Oh, you two should do a ceasefire" and so on, he's not even telling the people the truth, because the truth of the matter is that Azerbaijan just started striking Armenia out of nowhere, and then Armenia, all it's trying to do is defend. Like, if you look at the report, it's all like Armenians' air defense trying to stop like rockets from falling and killing their own people. So like when I see politicians and people coming out and saying that, it's so it's not he's not saying the complete true story, you know. It's just very crazy, because when you look at the history of the Armenians, the amount of suffering that they've went through throughout all history is just so sad to see that till even today, the majority of the world is still silent about, you know, all this unfair stuff that is happening to them. So I have one question, you know, since we can't really rely on these NATO politicians, and we can't rely on the mainstream media to report the truth and tell the people about what is really going on in the region. To the people watching, like on the internet, the normal people that have nothing to do with politics and so on, what can they really do, you know, to really help, you know, spread awareness about this issue that's going on right now?
This is a very important question, Treka, because unfortunately, the amount of solidarity with Armenia is very, 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 very little.
Yeah.
Comparing to, for example, to Ukraine. Yeah. And today, a friend of mine, she is a German. She has written a post about this issue particularly, and she doesn't even dare to post it on social media because she's afraid of a backlash by her friends and relatives, etc. So she sent it to me, and I posted it on my account. And I want to read it for you because it is, in my opinion, it's very well written and very eloquent. She says, I asked all why everyone felt so compassionate and supportive towards the situation in Ukraine, but don't give a shit about other countries in the world who have been or are currently at war. The answer was that the Ukraine is so close to Germany. I don't personally matter and others not. She says, let's put distance in perspective with some...
I'm sorry, can you just repeat it from the beginning, because I think my internet froze. I don't know why I'm having internet problems today. Can you just repeat it from the beginning so that people can hear it?
So she says, I asked all why everyone felt so compassionate and supportive towards the situation in Ukraine, but don't give a shit about other countries in the world who have been or are currently at war. The answer was that Ukraine is so close to Germany. I don't personally believe it's that. I think social media and the news influences this more than anything else. People are dying in Armenia right now. I don't see anyone talking about it. I don't see people changing their profile pictures to the Armenian flag. No one is praying for Armenia. No one is creating a fundraiser or collecting clothes and food. Why are we so selective about compassion and empathy? Why do some people matter and others not? Then she says, let's put distance in perspective with some approximate distances. Germany, between Germany and Ukraine, there is 1,750 kilometers.
Yeah.
Between Ukraine and Armenia, there is 1,425 kilometers. Between Germany and Armenia, around 3,000 kilometers. And between Berlin and Ibiza, around 2,500 kilometers. She says, I guarantee you that if something happened in Ibiza, people would go into a frenzy to help and assist. But why not for Armenia? Why not for countries in Africa where genocide and terrorism has been going on for decades and still continues to happen to this day? It seems that personal association, news, and media channels govern compassion and empathy these days. People of countries that have not been visited and the personal association have not been created do not matter. My heart boils over at this. This, what I call selective empathy, is the same as racism, homophobia, xenophobia, and exclusivity. This is, I really like it. Like selective empathy is like racism.
100%.
I'm not saying we should not show our support. What I'm saying is that we should not pick and choose what nations or people we pledge our philanthropic acts to. We talk about inclusivity all the time, but I ask you, are you really inclusive or selectively inclusive? And I think this is very well written by a friend. She's worried to post this because the people and the media, the government, your boss maybe, if they see such posts on social media,
you might get fired or cancelled.
Yes. It's so crazy that people cannot see what they think.
And you know what's crazy? A couple of days ago, I had the same conversation with my friends. We were watching a soccer match, and I saw that till today they still have the Ukrainian flag, like close to the scores. Now, look, just to be clear, I wish peace for the Ukrainian people. I am against any killing of any Ukrainian person. Me and you have lived in a war zone, and we know how terrible living in a war zone is, and how losing a close one, and sleeping, waking up to bombs falling on a daily basis. So we wish the Ukrainian people peace and love, and we also wish the Russian people peace and love. But this goes back to your point of like selective, outrage. It's like I was talking to my friend. I was like, what about Syria? Syria is a country that has been going through 10 years of war, where many people have died and have been slaughtered by ISIS, by Al-Qaeda, by the United States, by NATO. Why isn't anyone putting the Syrian flag? What about when what happened to Libya, when Libya got completely destroyed because of the United States, and at the end they started having slave trades? Where was the flag of Libya? Where was the flag of Iraq? Where was the flag of Afghanistan? Where was the flag of all of these countries? It's so crazy that, like you said, it's a selective outrage. If you're against war, you need to speak out against all wars, not when it is beneficial to your political countries interest. Then they'll make an outrage about it, and when it doesn't have any interest, they'll be silent about it.
Exactly.
It's really crazy how we live in a crazy world.
In Iraq in the 90s, when the United States and the rest of the Western world imposed sanctions on Iraq, 500,000 children died from the sanctions. And after the occupation of Iraq in 2003, hundreds of thousands of civilians died because of the repercussions of the war. In Syria, 500,000 civilians died because of the CIA regime change war. And therefore, when you see that when you were in dire need for the world support to pick you up from the rubble of this war in Syria or elsewhere, and nobody gave you a hand, nobody sent you clothes, nobody tried to protest and ask their governments to lift the sanctions. So, including Ukraine, because Ukraine was an occupying force in Iraq, for example, and they had forces in Iraq. So I'm wholeheartedly for ending this war in Ukraine, and because people, they're paying a very heavy price, and they are used as a cannon fodder for a big conflict between NATO and Russia, right? This is a proxy war. But at the same time, just see Treka. So there are like around 40 nations, like 27 in Europe, the United States, Canada, Japan, South Korea. Korea. So these few countries, let's say maximum 40 countries, right?
Yeah.
And in the world, there are 190 countries, over 190 countries. So there are over 150 countries that aren't interested in now supporting Ukraine or being with the United States in this conflict. Why? Because they're sick and tired for decades being bullied by the United States, for decades being fought against through directly or indirectly, regime change wars, coup d'etats, sanctions, wars, destruction, etc. And now the people in Africa, for example, when they see the so-called civilized world is asking for their sympathy, so asking them not to buy gas or oil from Russia, or they're asking India, for example, asking people in the Middle East, and everybody is like, why would we do that when
why would we listen to you when you played a huge role in destroying our country?
Our interest is to buy cheap gas from Russia, because gas is, despite what these green ideologues say, gas is the backbone of the industry in almost everywhere, including in Germany, right? So so your interest is to buy cheap gas, and your interest also to see a multipolar world and to stop this bullying against you by the United States. Why do you think North Korea has nuclear weapons? Why do you think Iranians are seeking to have nuclear weapons? Why do you think Syria had chemical weapons before they were destroyed? Because everyone is afraid from the United States.
And they need something so that if the United States thinks of attacking them, like they will have like a weapon that will make them, you know, step back before. Because if, let's say, the United States saw that this is a very weak country and it's not capable of defending itself, it will attack it without thinking twice. That's even one of the main.
Libya, my friend, when Libya had weapons of mass destruction, who dared to bomb Libya? But when Gaddafi destroyed his weapon of mass destruction, what happened? They murdered him. They killed him in the street, and they danced over his dead body.
And you know what pisses me off is this. It's like you find Western countries that always come out and say we are against, you know, nuclear weapons, and we need to like stop this country because they have nuclear weapons. It's like you guys also have nuclear weapons. If you are against the idea of having nuclear weapons, how about destroy yours so that you will set an example to other people that are trying to either have nuclear weapons or have, you know? You can't be like, oh, I can't be a thief, and then going to another thief and telling them, hey, you're not allowed to steal. What the hell are you doing? This is wrong.
It's like in the Middle East, Israel has over 200 nuclear warheads, and they don't want Iran to have its own. And all the world is...
We are allowed to have it, but they are not allowed to have it, you know?
And you know, Israel was ready to use its nuclear weapons in 1973, and they activated their nuclear weapons. They wanted to use it, whether against Egypt or against Syria, when the war erupted. So there is a history of Israeli readiness to click the button and use nuclear weapons.
I mean, and the United States also used atomic bombs on you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Exactly.
So it's like they can't talk if they're not setting a good example. I wanted to ask, what is the United States? Is the United States playing a role in the Azerbaijan and Armenian conflict?
Actually, the official line of the United States is that they want to settle this issue diplomatically. But for them, this is a proxy war as well, and they enjoy a very good relations with Azerbaijan. And in my opinion, they are using Azerbaijan as a proxy to create a conflict in the Caucasus, because so there is a status quo, right? How can you change the status quo? You create a turmoil in that area, and then reshape the realities underground the way you want, and including it's very important this that the involvement of Russia. They want Russia to intervene, and also Israel, which has one of the biggest spying stations in the world, is in Azerbaijan. It's one of the former Mossad leaders or head of the Mossad say that they feel home in Azerbaijan. And why do they do that? Because they want to spy on Iran and its nuclear program, and also they want to. There are millions of ethnic Azeris living in Iran, mostly in the north, which is
we come out and we want to speak the truth and expose what is going on in the world, the video just suddenly freezes. They don't want us to educate the masses. If me and you now were talking about Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson breaking up, they would have allowed us to talk more. If we were talking about Leonardo DiCaprio breaking up with his 25-year-old girlfriend, they would even give us faster internet, no problem. But when we talk about innocent people dying, suddenly
Leonardo DiCaprio dating this Lebanese woman.
Which Lebanese woman?
Gigi Hadid. I don't know what's her name.
Yeah, she's like is Gigi Hadid Lebanese or Palestinian?
I don't know.
Okay, but she's fine. She's sexy.
I'm checking now.
Yeah. So what were we saying? I'm sorry for the internet freezing. But so to all the people watching, like the only advice I can give is that please try as much as you can to spread awareness about what is going on in Armenia, because a lot of innocent Armenians are dying. And, you know, we are all, you know, normal people. We are not politicians. We have nothing to do with all this dirty work that the politicians are doing. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's only the normal citizens that are going to pay the price and they're going to suffer the consequences. All these politicians that are making, you know, orders to strike or to kill or to throw bombs or to put economic sanctions, all of these politicians will never, ever get affected by the war. It's only the normal citizens that have nothing to do with the war. These are the people that our lives are getting destroyed. These are the people that are dying. These are the people that are suffering the consequences. And these are the people who are eventually going to become refugees, where they will be forced to leave their country for the safety of their family and children. You know, nobody would ever like to leave his country, but when you're living in a war zone and bombs are falling on a daily basis, you reach to the point where you have no choice, you know, but to run away. You know, it's either you die or you run away. And, you know, it's just a very, very sad situation that we live in 2022, where like now everyone is connected through the internet, and you still see a lot of people silent about atrocities and about war crimes that all of these, you know, devil worshipping politicians are doing. You know, it's very, very sad, you know, to see how people are still silent and how the mainstream media is very biased and politicized, and they only report about things that are in interest to the people that rule over them. And when it's not to the interest, or if it's going to expose their government, they stay silent and talk about irrelevant shit. It's just, it pisses me off so much.
You know what's the irritation? Why I get irritated, Treka? Because look, these people and the politicians who claim to be humanitarians, and they claim to be liberals, they claim to be championing human rights, they claim to be championing democracy all around the world, right? They claim that, but they don't practice what they preach.
Yes.
This is the problem, you know. Therefore, I think the hypocrisy is unimaginable by these people like Justin Trudeau, people like Joe Biden, people like Liz Truss nowadays in Britain. Like, they preach and they educate, they lecture us about how to be humanitarian, and then they do the opposite. So,
yeah.
On the other hand, for example, you don't see like, I'm not biased towards Russia, but I don't see Russia claiming to be championing human rights and democracy around the world, right? And they're just defending their own interests. So I don't like hypocritical people, and it is very irritating for me to see people believing their politicians, and this is why I get very irritated by the people who, after all this death and destruction around the world, they haven't waken up. It's like that's why your audience are respectable people. My audience are respectable people, and most of them are from Western countries. And these people, they are thirsty and they want to educate themselves because they don't want the people of the world to suffer, right? So we always draw the distinction between those who are awake and those who claim to be woke. They are two different things. They are
100%.
awake people all around the world, and they are sympathetic with us. And we're not asking much, you know. We're not asking to be the leaders of the world. We're not asking. We're asking to be left alone. And like it's not much to ask. And we don't hate Western countries. We don't hate Western people. This is bullshit. Like, I'm receiving nowadays messages from some hate messages, like on Instagram. Somebody is like, she wants me to go back to my own country. Like, why are you spitting in our face? No, I'm not spitting on your faces. If you are pro-war and you don't care about my well-being and me being healthy, alive, and the same thing goes for my family, whether it's in Armenia or in Syria, then sorry, fuck you. Then you are an imperialist. So, but on the other hand, I'm also surrounded by so many European and so many German people here who are humans, and they act accordingly, and they don't do selective sympathy or empathy with the people. So, of course, I belong to these people. I consider them my friends. I consider them family. I consider them my allies in a struggle that we just want to see more just international community where we're not strangled. Like, why would there be a unipolar system where the United States dictates all other countries to follow what it wants, and then if you don't follow, it sanctions you? Is this a fucking like a father or what? Like, it's like your father is like punishing you at home, you know?
And plus, if you look at what the United States have done throughout the last 20 years alone, we're not even going to go back, just the last 20 years, the amount of destruction it has caused for the Middle East, it is so clear that you guys, if your real intention is to fix the Middle East, it's very clear that you guys are failures in doing that, because you always made the situation worse. And talking about the Western audience, bro, there are many Western, like most of my followers, like you said, are people from the West. And they always tell me that, Treka, thank you so much, you know, for spreading awareness of what is going on in the Middle East, because our mainstream media and politicians are keeping us in the dark about this stuff. When we start showing them proofs and videos, they'll be like, we didn't even know that this is going on. Like just yesterday, when I posted about what's going on between Azerbaijan and how like Azerbaijan is striking and killing Armenians, many people were telling me that we didn't even hear about this on our mainstream media. Like, so when you talk to most of the people living in the United States, when you talk to them, they will tell you we are against wars. We don't want to do any more wars. We don't want to be sending our children to the Middle East to die in the name of, you know, war. But the problem is that their government doesn't even ask for their permission before striking another country, before imposing economic sanctions on their country. And the mainstream media is always silent about it. So me personally, I don't really blame the people that live in, you know, European countries or the United States, because their government keep them always in the dark, and they don't really tell them what is really going on. So it is our responsibilities for people like me, people like you, you know, in social media, to try our best to spread awareness about what is going on in the Middle East and in the world. And it is also the responsibility of our followers to be sharing this stuff so that they can also educate as much people as they can about all of these atrocities and criminal acts that's happening right now in the world, to try at least to, you know, our best to stop the killing of innocent people. Because at the end of the day, that is what my intention is and what your intention is. Like, we're trying to educate people about what is going on, so that we can stop the killing of innocent people. Because me and you, we suffered enough in Syria. Like, we know how it feels to live in a war zone, to be sitting down, suddenly bombs are falling, you're surrounded by people shooting each other, you're losing your friend, you're losing your family members, you have friends that run away from the country. Like, we know how cruel life can be when you're living in a war zone. And we don't want anyone to experience that. We don't want people in Armenia to experience that. We don't want people in Ukraine, in Russia, in America, in Africa, in Europe. We don't want anybody to experience war. So like the most that we can do is always speak up the truth, expose all of these corrupt politicians and what they are doing, and try our best to spread awareness about the suffering of innocent people. That's the most we can do, because me, like, I can't go now to Armenia and like fight. You see how skinny I am? I can't really do anything. The most we can do is, you know, spread awareness about the truth. And hopefully if the majority of the people are now educated, they can then pressure their government and tell them, yo, listen, we know what you are doing abroad and we are against it, and we're not gonna, you know, support this. We're not gonna fund this, and we're gonna, you know, stand against this. And hopefully the government will shut the fuck up and stop, you know, committing more crimes, in whether it's in Europe or it's in the Middle East or it's in Africa. Like that's the goal, you know.
We shouldn't underestimate the power of the masses. And
Yes.
and as you can see, so many accounts on social media are being deplatformed because they want to control the narrative. So but we are the majority, you know.
Yes.
And there is also a silent majority, and so we have to encourage the people to be more brave and speak about their governments if they are meddling in other countries or financing terrorism or trying to overthrow a government illegally. It's not up to anyone in any government or any leader to say what kind of political system you should have, or what kind of economic system you should have, or what kind of language you should speak. It's like every country is a unique, every country, every people is a unique experience. So these people are different from the Western people. They are different from the Asian people. So they develop their own political systems. They develop their own social codes and values and etc. And when what we're asking is just don't impose your way on us, you know. And and this is like after World War II, all these interventions were by the United States.
Yes.
Around the world, and we were one of the biggest victims in Syria. As I mentioned, 500,000 people died. And when Trump came to power in 2017, he stopped the CIA-covered operation in Syria called Timber Sycamore, and the United States spent over $1 billion to destabilize Syria. And this is just the United States, and the allies of the United States, like Turkey, like Qatar, like Saudi Arabia, they pumped tens of billions of dollars worth of weapons, ammunition, training, logistical help, intelligence support, etc., to this radical Islamists. So we are very young, you know, and we already have seen a lot. When I was 21, the war already erupted in Syria, or 22. So we have so much experience now, you know, in life because of these hardships that we have been through, and we don't want to see other people. So when I warn the Ukrainian people, like, guys, there is no way to be victorious over a superpower like Russia. So the provocation is really counterproductive. You need to sit on a table and negotiate, but because the British government, the United States, and other countries are supplying Ukraine with lots of weapon and ammunition, which is a big money laundering operation, by the way. And the Ukrainian government also thinks they can win. No, you cannot win over Russia. What's happening is just prolonging the war, and at the end of the day, you will sit with Russia and sign on a peace treaty. But after what? Now you have 5,000 civilian casualties after 500,000 people die.
And these politicians don't care. The politicians don't care about the casualties. All they care about is prolonging the war, you know, for their own interests and their own, you know, plans.
How many politicians died during the war, or how many of these politicians sent their sons to fight in this war?
No one. They're sitting in their mansions, smoking their cigars, while they send their own people to die and get killed in this war. It's just so cruel. And like, these politicians, they're all heartless. And I don't know. Do you think now what's happening between Azerbaijan and Armenia? Do you think like a peace treaty will soon happen, or more escalation will just happen and more people will be dying? What do you think?
In
Like you as a
in Armenia,
yeah,
I think unfortunately Armenia has a very weak government and very weak leader who cannot manage its security affairs, cannot manage its military affairs. And Aliyev, from the Aliyev point of view, why should he stop? If your enemy is weak and cannot defend itself and is pissing its own allies like Russia and Iran, so and every time there is a military conflict, Azerbaijan advances a few meters in Armenian territory. So I don't see Armenians. I don't see that this conflict would like stop the way where it is right now, unless the Armenians really prepare for war, like prepare themselves that they can inflict the damage on Azerbaijan. Otherwise, why would Azerbaijan stop? If Azerbaijan is an aggressor, an aggressive country,
and it seems that Armenia is
you're not going to buy
militarily.
your peace. You're not going to buy peace from this government of Azerbaijan unless you're strong and you can show the enemy that you can inflict the
Fight
damage
back.
on Azerbaijan.
It's true. Unfortunately, you know, in order for a country to prevent any other country from attacking or like causing aggression, it has to be strong militarily so that that country can think twice before attacking. Because when a aggressor sees that the country is weak militarily, it wouldn't think twice before attacking because it knows that you know, it's going to win and it's going to have the upper hand, especially when it is also being supported by other, you know, strong countries in the, you know, in the region.
Exactly. Azerbaijan is, as I mentioned, supported by several countries and also has very strong gas deals now with the European Union. So they feel like immunized, right? They feel
Yeah.
immune from condemnation, from sanctions, from demands to withdraw from Armenian territories. At the end of the day, in politics, the interests always come as top priority. So all these nations, like with Armenia, they don't see Armenia relevant because Armenia doesn't have a gas and doesn't have any fuel, and you have also a very weak government. So why would they care? You know, in my
Yeah.
opinion, the Armenians should first fix their internal problems. They should immunize their domestic affairs and then build a strong army to defend themselves. Otherwise, this is not gonna stop.
Well, I would like to thank you so much, Kivork, for always speaking up. And we really, really appreciate your voice. You are a truth speaker, and you are very, very appreciated, my friend. And to all the people watching, please follow Kivork Almasyan on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and follow his page, Syriana Analysis, so that you can stay updated with his latest reports. You will find nothing but the truth on his page. It's available on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Telegram, and most importantly, on Pornhub. It's called Syriana Analysis. Make sure to follow it. I have to say that joke every time me and you meet. Anyway, thank you so much, my friend, for giving us time and for speaking the truth. Me and you will
Thank you so
definitely,
much.
you're very welcome, my friend. Me and you will definitely do another video soon, also talking about the situation in Syria, because the people also deserve to be educated about what is going on in the Middle East. And thank you so much, Kivork. And we will meet
Thank
soon.
you, bro, for having me, and thank you for the people who followed us during this live stream.
Yes, and we hope you all share this video to spread awareness about what is going on in Armenia. And you know what, we should all, you know, work together to try as much as we can to spread awareness in hopes that maybe the war will stop. And you know, more, because the more people are educated about it and the more people like get outraged and speak to their government and like pressure them to stop this war, the more like we will reach peace, because the power is in our hands. It's not in the government. Is not in the government hands. It's us. The more we are all united against war, the more we will be able to stop it.
Yes.
All right. Peace, my friend. Thank you.
Peace. Ciao, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. All right, guys, that would be all for today. We will be keeping you updated with what goes on in the upcoming days. Hopefully the war will stop, and hopefully less, people will be killed. And thank you all for watching. My name is Treka Z. I'll see you all in my next video. Peace.